Drama's over. That was perspective from a Roman. Let me give you another side of the story. This Jesus fulfilled hundreds of Old Testament prophecies that no human would have any control over, from the bloodlines of his ancestors to the manner of which he was born to the circumstances of his death. And it really was Passover. The city really was packed. And he really did say that he could rebuild the temple in 3 days. They even used it against him in trial. We're going to pick that up here in John chapter 18, verse 29, where the church leaders have taken Jesus before Pilate, the judge. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man? If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." See, it's already sneaky, right from the beginning. Hey, we wouldn't have brought him here if he wasn't guilty. Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." Well, he's telling the church leaders, hey, he broke your law, not mine. You handle it. And here's their reply. "But we have no right to execute anyone," the Jews objected. You see, it's again, he's guilty, worthy of death. Here you go, Pilate. Hang him up. This happened so that the words Jesus had spoken, indicating the kind of death he was going to die, would be fulfilled. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked. "Or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "It was your people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place." And Pilate's like, "Yahtzee! Gotcha! You didn't say you were king, but you just said you have a kingdom, so..." And here we are. "You are a king then," Pilate said. Jesus answered, "You are right in saying I am a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" Pilate asked. With this, he went out again to the Jews and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him, but it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover." So there's a couple things going on here that are pertinent. One, it's Passover. Over 1 million godly people have packed into the city for Passover. It's also a Roman festival. So a whole bunch of Romans have come in as well. The town is packed. It is busy. And as you can imagine, leaders throughout the region want to do their thing. They want to have their Passover, or they want to enjoy their festival. They want no nonsense, no riots, no trials. They just want everybody to get along and behave themselves. So Pilate's kind of bothered by this, thinks, I can smooth this over. As part of their Passover deal, I usually cut somebody loose from jail. I'll get this guy off the hook. We're done. So he said, I release one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews? And they shouted back, No, not him. Give us Barabbas. Now, Barabbas had taken part in a rebellion. So Pilate really didn't want him cutting loose. And he's just a little ticked off at this point. But thinks, I got it. I'll send him away to be scourged. He'll come back, ripped up, limping. people will see him all bloody and stuff, and they'll feel sorry for him. And they'll go home. So here we are, chapter 19, verse 1. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. 8 simple words. But in those 8 words was the scourging with the cat o' nine tails. A terrible punishment. Often fatal, but in this case they would have given him less than what would have been. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe signifying royalty and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they struck him in the face. Once more, Pilate came out and said to the Jews, "Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." And when Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." And I'm sure he was probably whispering over his shoulder a little bit too, saying, "That's a good limp you got going on over there, buddy. Just fall a couple times on your way here. I think they're buying it." He was desperately trying to end this. As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jews insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law, he must die, because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. He went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have power to either free you or crucify you?" And Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, who has handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." And from then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jews kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be king opposes Caesar." So they're even threatening Pilate via political ties. Hey, even Caesar would be on our side on this one. They're really pressuring him. And when Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out. And before he did that, I'm sure he had a chat with him. He probably said, "Dude, can you let this go? It's all they've got. Just ixnay on the Asiame. Nothing else sticks." So Pilate came out and sat on the judgment seat. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. But they shouted, "Take him away! Take him away! Crucify him!" "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. And finally, Pilate handed him over to them to be crucified. And so the thing I hope you catch, ladies and gentlemen, is that this wasn't some unfortunate accident. It was intentional. 100% intentional. Everything humans intended for bad, heaven intended for good. Think about it. The city was crowded. no shortage of witnesses. Crucifixion is not survivable. 100% mortality. No one could say he faked his death. And far too many people saw him alive after. Nobody could say it was a conspiracy. And they really did see him alive after. He walked around for 40 days. Appeared at one time among a group of 500 people. And of course, he took extra time with his disciples. And can you imagine what that must have been like when who they thought was dead was standing in the room with them? I'm sure he had to wake a few of them up because they passed out. I'm sure. He probably was trying to catch them like, whoa, sit, oh, lay, okay. Wake him back up and say, it's really me. It's really me. I'm okay. I'm here. Show him his scars. In terms of Passover, Jesus was the perfect lamb, the final sacrifice. This wasn't just for past sin or future sin. This was for all sin, for all time. Jesus would declare an eternal victory over the devil and all his games. Only the evil Satan doesn't want you to believe that. When you come to a point that you want to turn, you want to be better, you want to make a right decision, Satan's game is to remind you of your past mistakes and say, oh, so you think you can be better, do you? You want to change, really? Remember when you said this? Or remember when you did that? And my, if anyone knew about the other thing, you know the other thing, nobody would accept you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the game of a losing, sorry opponent who has nothing left to play. And when you read your Bible, you'll see that the battle is over. It's finished. Jesus has already secured the victory. Satan loses. All you have to do is join the winning side. And you do that by accepting him. Think about this. What he did was so mind-blowing, so profound. Everyone since then on this planet has had to come to the point of Jesus and have that sort of internal conversation or that understanding or that reconciliation that he's real, he did that, or turn their back on him. Everyone at some point in time has had to come to that decision. And maybe it's that time for you. Maybe this has stirred your soul. Maybe this has caused some questions. Maybe you're wondering what's going on inside of that head of yours right now. I would encourage you to reach out to a friend, a coworker, a family member, somebody at the local church. Chances are there's already someone in your mind. Talk to them. Talk to them. Get your questions answered. And have a better understanding of who Jesus is and what he really did for you. and make this next Easter the best one ever. God bless.